Are you in a reading slump? If so, here's a list of books that will help you get out of the reading slump. So I will talk about, some classics later on in this video, but I thought I would start out with just some easy reading, some books that really have propulsive plots. They might not have, the most well-drawn characters, but if you're in a reading slump, sometimes it's just fun to read books that don't require much thought, but that are still fun, that still keep you want to keep reading. So I thought I would start with Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. This one is a twisty little thriller. It's about a psychiatrist who has a mysterious wife, and he begins to have an affair with his secretary. But there's something darker going on here, and I won't go into it because if I do, I might give away the ending. All I can tell you is that it's really twisty, it's really good. It actually became a Netflix series after. The Netflix series was good if you want to read the book and then watch the series. If you've never read this book and you're in a slump, it might be a good option for you. Another one similar to Behind Her Eyes is Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. So B.A. Paris has written a lot of books, and I will say that none of them were as successful as her first, Behind Closed Doors. This ultimately is the story about a woman who marries the wrong man, and she has to figure out how to get away from him. But there's more to it than that. It's one of those books that, it might not have the greatest characters ever drawn. There might be a few things that, maybe don't make sense, or maybe are just a little, hand-waving here and there, but if you're in a reading slump, it's a great book to start with. It's going to keep you wanting to turn that page. Now, sometimes when I'm in a reading slump, not that I really care about celebrities, but sometimes, there might be a celebrity that I like, and so I'll read their memoir, and I actually really happened to really enjoy the Britney Spears memoir. Yes, I'll say it, I'm a Britney Spears fan, but I did think that the memoir was actually quite thoughtful. If you're in a similar age group to me, you may have followed Britney Spears, when she was at the height of her fame in the late 90s and the early 2000s. So one thing that I thought was interesting about it was you were getting her perspective of these huge, news stories that were happening that you probably heard about if you followed Britney Spears at the time. But ultimately, I thought it was actually a poignant novel and quite sad actually. I mean, I feel bad for her. I will say that there was a point when I actually had tears in my eyes. I actually listened to it. I thought Michelle Williams did a really good job as the narrator, but there was a point when I did actually have tears in my eyes because I thought it was just that sad. But if you're in a reading slump and you are a Britney Spears fan, I would recommend that. Or maybe there's some other, celebrity that you would like to read about. But, it's fluff, right? Ultimately, it's fluff. It doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, who cares about celebrities? But sometimes you just need that fluff to sort of get your reading brain going again. Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This is another very taut thriller, so it takes place in the near future. It's got a little bit of a post-apocalyptic flavor to it. Basically, the world kind of sucks. It's very dangerous. Most people aren't really living in reality. They're living in virtual reality. But ultimately, this book is about, the dark underbelly of this virtual reality world. Really good. Great page turner. It also has a lot of 80s Easter eggs, if you care about that sort of thing. Now, another really taut thriller / horror. I would say at the end it was, kind of horror-y, although I wouldn't really say it was, all that horror-y. I'm not a big horror reader, but 14 by Peter Clines. This is about a cast of characters who live in this really bizarre building in Los Angeles. And as they start poking around the building, they start realizing that there's just things about it that don't make sense. Again, this isn't going to win any, prizes for the most brilliantly written book of all time, but it will keep your attention. So you might want to try it if you're in a reading slump. The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. This is another taut thriller that will keep your attention. Ultimately, it is about a woman. She is an alcoholic, and she becomes obsessed with this woman that she sees, this woman and her husband that she sees every day as she rides the trains. But this woman and her husband, there's something darker behind it. But, if you're in a reading slump, you might want to try it. Now, sometimes for me, if I'm in a reading slump, I'll pick up a romance book because, you kind of just know where they're going, but usually if it's a good romance writer, they know how to suck you in, right? They know how to get you involved in the story. Not that the character is going to be blowing your mind in terms of, is this the most unbelievable portrait of the human condition? No, it's a romance novel, but they can be fun. So Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren is actually one that I really liked. And I'm not a huge romance reader. This one, I feel like of all the romances that I've read, it's one of the ones that, I remember the most and that I really liked. Now, one that is a little bit more literary is Night Circus. This one has an element of romance, an element of fantasy, an element of historical fiction. It's about a circus, a magical circus, and two people people in a circus, a woman and a man, and ultimately they are pitted against each other in a duel to the death. And as you might imagine, they fall in love with each other on the way. But I was actually surprised by how much I really, really loved this book. This book was so hyped when it was written, but it was really good. And if you are in a slump, it might be one that you want to pick up. Now, another option, instead of reading, you know, kind of these like quick, fast-paced books, you could also go back to an old favorite or a beloved classic of yours, you know, something like Pride and Prejudice or Anne of Green Gables, or maybe even Sherlock Holmes. So if you're in a slump, think of a book that you really love and just reread that book, even an old classic. Well, there you go. There are some books that I hope can help you get out of a reading slump. And as always, happy reading.